All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the STEM Educator Symposium. We'd like to thank the STEM Educator Symposium for these past 3 years have been brought to you in partnership by the Missouri After School Network and the Math and Science Coalition. And we're glad to have Brian Crouse with us again this morning to talk about the state of STEM in Missouri. This year, our funding is from, we have a sponsor from the Missouri Science and Technology campus, the Coomer Center for STEM Education. And then, as in the past 3 years, we'd like to thank the STEM Next Opportunity Fund grant for their support of after school in Missouri so that we can coordinate events like this. Today's schedule, we have 3 different sessions that we invite you to participate in. This first session will include a state of STEM in Missouri and also our keynote from Tammy Buckner. At 11:15, so shortly after this one, we will be changing rooms, and that's for attendance purposes. Thank you for being flexible with us on that. We'll be hearing a presentation from Perrin Chick about the engineering mindset and equity and inclusion framework. And then after a lunch break, where you're on your own for lunch, we will have a session about role models and mentors and family engagement, along with a resource panel of STEM-related projects and partners that will be talking about their resources and how they relate to the role models, mentors, and family engagement. So we have a good day of events lined up and hope that you can join us for each of those sessions. The Missouri After School Network is a statewide organization, and we're one of 50 statewide after school networks funded by the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation to do work on policy, partnerships, and quality initiatives on behalf of all after school programs throughout the state. Part of the way that we do that is through our after school leadership team, which brings together professionals and program and organizational partners from a wide variety of organizations and backgrounds to meet and look at the needs of after school in the state of Missouri and to work toward building those resources and supports for the programs. We do this through our committees. We have 4 committees that meet on a quarterly basis, and they're open to any professional or partner or stakeholder or interested party throughout the state who would like to help us to make forward progress in these areas. In looking at after school across the state, we in 2017 and then again in 2022 did what we call our mapping project. So trying to get a lay of the land on where these after school programs are at. And want to emphasize a couple things in looking at this, that there are all different types of after school programs throughout the state. And most of the state in different regions has after school programs. The greens are the good in this particular map. So you can see a lot of green throughout the state. We have rural programs, we have urban programs, we have large programs, we have small programs, we have programs that are tied to the school, we have programs that are led by community-based organization. There's a wide variety of there. But we also have a lot of blue in our state, and those are areas where when we contacted the school districts, they did not have school age options in their community. So they did not have a program at their school or a YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club or a church that was taking specifically school age kids and giving them an opportunity after school for continued learning, growth, and development. So where we have a lot of green on the map, and we're very proud of that, we also have a lot of places where we'd like to see more after school programs, and our policy and our partnership and our quality work all help to push that overall growth of after school in the state of Missouri. Today is specific to STEM. And we're, as I mentioned, the STEM Next Opportunity Fund funding, specifically STEM Next funds all 50 statewide after-school networks in the area for their specific project, the Million Girl Moonshot. Although it's labeled the Million Girls Moonshot, the resources and information that we have through the project to share can help all programs, whether they're working with girls specifically, boys and girls, or a combination. Those resources are available. The Million Girls Moonshot has what they call their transformative practices framework. And so part of that is the access to STEM. And later we'll be hearing from Perrin Chick in our second section about the equity and inclusion framework. Another transformative process focuses on the engineering mindset and helping kids to think like an engineer, which those engineering mindset align really well with the entrepreneurial mindset and several other mindsets. It's just this process of intentionally teaching kids these steps and how to think critically about what they're doing and sequentially. Another transformative process is role models and mentors and family engagement. And our last session today will focus on that area. And then another transformative process that Missouri is just starting to dip our toes into is STEM transitions and pathways. And that's this idea that students may have a fantastic STEM experience and really get that spark. And how do we help them connect the student to what's next and how they take that? So that really depends on having a good network and knowing what else is going on. And so as we work through our STEM committee and our STEM partnerships, we're trying to gather that information and resources so that programs know where they can refer students onto. So with that being said, I am going to once again thank our sponsors, STEM Next Opportunity Fund through the Million Girls Moonshot and Missouri S&T's Coomer Center for STEM Education, and pass it over to Brian Crouse, who is going to fill us in on the state of STEM in Missouri.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate that. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of today. It's exciting to see all the after school folks in the room learning about STEM and where Missouri After School Network can provide a great resource and partnership. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share my screen. First, I got to get my PowerPoint up. Here we go. Okay, so you should see the slide STEM Symposium. Everybody good? Okay. So, you know, just first off, hats off to all that you do day in and day out to provide education opportunities for students in the out of school time. I was a benefactor of out of school time years and years ago. I also saw front lines, my staff that had issues struggling with trying to balance work and keeping their kiddos safe and healthy and continue to be educated. And they didn't put their students in an out of school time until after a much of stress, as they had a lot of phone calls coming in at about 4 o'clock. What do I eat? Sister went out with a boyfriend, all those type of things. So, you know, first off, thanks to all you do. It's really a value add to our community, our state, and really to the talent pipeline. So when we think about talent pipeline in the state of Missouri, we think of after school. So just kind of, I'm going to go a little bit into the state of STEM. I'm not going to dive too far into academic data. In all honesty, COVID really knocked out of a lot of the research that was occurring as far as where is STEM graduations, where is STEM activities occurring. It really did set us back, and we're starting to see some new research come out just recently about STEM. But I want you to think about today where we are. So everything on the screen, are we in the future? Or are we in the present? And so if you think everything on the screen is future, go ahead and put it in the box future in the chat box. If you everything is now, go ahead and put it in the box as now. Seeing a lot of nows. Okay, future, okay, good, good, good. You know, for the most part, everything that you see here is now. Minus the detaching car that you see. We do have hover vehicles that are starting to be developed. The problem that they have right now is just the AI and the the artificial intelligence can't keep up with all that they need to do to control the safety of the vehicles, but they're doing it. We have virtual screens that can be flipped around, bent. We have robots. I think you've all heard that Japan has been kind of the leading, nation state that has been developing robotics and different types of artificial intelligence. So the reality is, even though this is kind of a cool gift, it really is the state of where we're at. We're seeing this more and more. At the CAPSA symposium that Mark and the team put on at after school, they talked about, the Jetsons and how everything of the Jetsons really come to fruition, right? So where does that take us as far as the state of STEM in Missouri? And there's some good reports that have come out just recently. This one actually is a report done by CompTIA of business decision makers on where they feel emerging industries are going to be most impacted. Machine learning, Internet of Things, blockchain, quantum computing, 3D printing, artificial intelligence. All these different pieces are influencing the way that we do business in the state of Missouri. And all these things also impact you. But I want you to just think of this as a global context, right? We're not going to teach kids how to do machine learning at age 5, right? We're not going to put that in after school environments, but it is something to be kind of cognizant of where we are going as a society and where our business industry is driving, and embedding those type of skills, coding, working with digital technologies, being agile, learning about 3D printing, using those type of those skill sets and devices really can help your students just realize the future a little bit easier than, say, like my generation could. And we see it in the newspaper, the chat GPT is becoming really a huge phenomenon. Higher education is looking at that. College kids are now cheating with it. Puts out some pretty good term papers, apparently. Doesn't help you on your final if it's in the classroom, though, if you don't have a device with you. So that's just something to kind of be cognizant of. Missouri industry strengths. I want to kind of bring this to the forefront. We are really much our agricultural nature and our center point for logistics. If you think about Missouri, we're at the center of the country, but we're also center of North America, Canada, and Mexico. So transportation logistics is a key crucial element. Advanced manufacturing, we're seeing manufacturing come back in spades, but the type of manufacturing that we're seeing in Missouri is not punch press, kind of quick, cheap parts like we kind of offshored years ago. It's more advanced manufacturing, and we're using automation and Industry 4.0 to kind of drive us into that future. IT and technology, we're going to dive into that a little bit. Financial professional services, if you're in the St. Louis, Kansas City markets, financial and professional services really is a strong, and the fintech that we hear about is driving that. Construction and development, we're seeing more construction and development with ARPA funding coming through, and we are pushing at the Missouri Chamber of Commerce for semiconductor build outs in Missouri. We won't be like Ohio when it comes to semiconductor because they were lucky to get, I think, a $20 billion package from the feds to build out Intel's new semiconductor space over there. But we can be plugged into the semiconductor kind of ecosystem and in the supply chain. And of course, BioLife Science. If you ever go into St. Louis or Kansas City, you can see the Stower Institute in Kansas City. You can see the Danforth Life Science Center. There's a ton of companies that support that. And that all kind of lays a foundation into the rural areas because a lot of their research actually takes place in Missouri's farmland. Healthcare, of course, one of our largest industries and made even larger by COVID, because now we're seeing a huge turnover of nurses in the industry. So it's going to be driving us for the next 10 years probably on that turnover. So I wanted to bring just a quick snapshot. I mentioned some of these industries. This is the Missouri Economic Workforce Report that was done in 2022. Some of the research was obtained in 2021. And as you can see, restaurants and other eating places is the #1 growth or one of the top growth industries. And why? Because of COVID, right? It took everything out of the restaurant. But if you look at the second one down, computer systems design and related services. So that could be anything from actual in the semiconductor space. It could be companies like Worldwide Tech that actually do work in the computer arena by building software systems and the backbone data structures. It could be Brewer Science down in Rolla. If you're familiar with Brewer Science, they make the chemical that goes on all the semiconductor and chip wafers so that the energy doesn't transfer from one wafer to the next. But you also have medical and surgical hospital growth. You have travel accommodations. Once again, COVID took a really heavy hit out of us. And so you'll see that come back. It'll be interesting, though, on the second one down from that, elementary and secondary schools, because I'm hearing across the board that elementary and secondary schools, teachers are leaving the profession in spades right now. So, but, you know, the things to point out, computer systems, medical, surgical, as well as warehouse storaging, those type of pieces are in growth. In the warehouse and storaging, if you think about that, we had Chewy. So if you're a big pet lover like I am, Chewy came into Missouri, they have it. It's mostly automated. You have Amazon that's hit up in a couple of different places in Missouri. I mean, it's just a really good area. So going to the tech side. So we did a report, Missouri 2030 Technology Report, and we tried to get an understanding of where we stand in the national ecosystem for tech. And when we think about tech, it primarily is in the IT spectrum, but there was other areas that we looked at that are related to IT or how technology is being integrated into just about every facet of industry in the US as well as global. So really good with tech manufacturing growth rate. Expected future tech manufacturing growth rate at 8. Sector diversity, we're at 8. It's really strong. So we're in the top 10. Energy in the tech growth, women in tech sector. I think that was one of the key things that we took away from this, is that we have more women in our tech sector than that of other states that have been known for technology for years. So that's a really good plus to us. And I think we'll get into this a little bit later. It comes with a lot of balance with what we're doing in K-12 without a school time. We have a lot of good programs for girls in STEM. And we see our FIRST robotics teams really going in and recruiting young girls to go into the FIRST robotics. So there's all kinds of different things that are happening across the state. So it's not just one silver bullet that's creating us women in tech sector workforce. It's a multiple factor. So where are the jobs? So when we looked at the jobs in 2017, we kind of did just a scan. So these are all the tech jobs basically as a percentage of all jobs in the state of Missouri, greater than 5%. So anything dark blue is strong tech. And you think about this and you go, well, why does Randolph and Macon County have good tech jobs? You know, that's out there in the middle of the rural areas, but they have a lot of manufacturing, and they have a group called onshore reshore outsourcing that actually is trying to bring IT back into the rural areas. Wayne County, of course, down in the Boot Heel, what's down there? A variety of different industries that are attached to manufacturing. And you also have healthcare is big down there, which IT and technology is becoming more and more integrated into healthcare systems. And you also have a college down there. So in that white sea of Southeast Missouri, Wayne actually has a good percentage of tech jobs available. When you look at the tech worker participation rates, you see how it kind of spreads out a little bit more, right? Because what has occurred is there's been broadband adoption in the state of Missouri for the last 5-6 years. Now it's really in earnest trying to get broadband out in the state of Missouri. And so you can see workers can live a little bit further away from the tech clustered areas of the state, but commute or work from home if they have the broadband. I'm just on the south side or west side of the Jefferson City, the capital, and of the river. If you were to go to Holt Summit just above the river, there is a broadband connection there that is over 1 gigabyte in speed. We don't have that where I live, just 10 minutes away from the capital. So it's amazing how broadband is in some areas and not in other areas, and what it's doing for the growth of those areas. So the projected tech growth in the state of Missouri, by and large, is pretty good. And when you think about this as a relation to manufacturing and healthcare being the prime drivers. Telehealth medicine and manufacturing automation is driving that. As we put in more PLCs, robotic welders, different types of high-end 5-axis machines and CNC, all those things need IT staff to actually program them, or upskilling their current manufacturing staff to program them. And of course, if you're in Mercer, Davies, Pulaski, and Iron, we know what's going on in those areas, right? There is a sucking sound as they're leaving out. Young people are leaving out of those areas. And because they're leaving out, there's also industry that's drying up. But when we think about industry in Missouri, all these companies are considered tech companies, including Bayer. You know, when Montana was bought out, the CEO of the global Bayer operation came here to Missouri, did the kind of the grand unveiling. And in his opening remarks, he basically said that Bayer is a technology company that just happens to be in the agricultural space. Equipment Share, based out of Columbia, if you've heard of Equipment Share, it's a rental company. They'll say the same thing. They're a technology company that just happens to rent construction equipment. So regardless if you're in a rural area or an urban area or suburban area, these type of companies are in spades growing and growing because for a couple of reasons. One, we have good workforce availability here. Two, our low cost of living is another key component. So I didn't want to go too far into the data stuff. I really want to, talk about where does Missouri After School and where do you fit into this piece of the pie of helping companies like Brewer Science or Boeing or Worldwide Technology or Hitachi or Pfizer really develop the workforce that they need, and at the same time igniting and inspiring your students. And so the After School Alliance, you probably have all seen this. They had 2 reports that they've done. We've talked about it in length at some of the Missouri After School STEM committee meetings. So in 2014, there was a baseline of where parents and programs fit in the STEM space. And what they've come to realize, and what we've come to realize even in that time period, is the perceptions and the types of STEM that's being out there by the report has decreased, right? So parents reporting that their after school programs have offered STEM. In 2014, it was 74%. In 2020, it was 65%. So the understanding is, based on the report, is that you would think there's a lessening of the types of STEM that's being out there in the after school programs. I don't know if that's the case, and maybe that's something that Terry and Clint can speak to a little bit more later. But one thing is certain is that parents do value STEM and after school. And so 73% in 2020 value after school STEM. So they understand the value that it plays. The great thing that I think about STEM in the after school goes to this next piece, which is STEM and after school reaches all students. And so from their report, you see underrepresented students are actually receiving good STEM in after school. For boys to girl ratio, 75% boys, 72% girls are receiving STEM. And then your minority breakdown of Hispanic, African American, white, Asian, right there. So I think that's a key component, that STEM and after school is an equalizer, right? So if we see, and I love Project Lead the Way, but if you look at Project Lead the Way data, Project Lead the Way data doesn't really impact minority students as well as it does white students. But after school space actually does make a better improvement on hitting all students, regardless of their social economic, regardless of where they live, and regardless of if they're minority or if they're Caucasian. And so with that, kind of want to go into this next segment because we're going to have Tammy Buckner come in a little bit and talk about what they're doing right now for coding and after school space. But STEM and after school is very diverse. There's all kinds of things that you can do. You can buy programming, you can get kits, you can just explore through your communities. And I know we have a lot of cool STEM professionals in this webinar today. There's all kinds of things that you can do. But these are some marquee programs that we see in the after school space. And I want to say this, at a national level, at a state level, the Missouri After School Network and the Missouri Math and Science Coalition have been partners for well over 8 years, I want to say, if not a little bit longer than that. But one thing that's kind of transformed at a national and a state level with after school and STEM is the STEM ecosystems that was spinoff from Mott Foundation. I believe Mott Foundation still funds it to some extent. But they placed in the lower level, you can see they placed after school as a prime aspect of the whole ecosystem. That's what delivered to kids. And in Kansas City, you have the KC STEM Alliance, and in St. Louis, you have the STEM STL. Both organizations are approved STEM ecosystem. Both are pushing for after school STEM. In fact, STEM STOL in St. Louis has provided an out of school time cohort system to help prove up after school programs with STEM in the St. Louis metro region. So they're doing some great work. It's a wonderful thing that the STEM ecosystems have actually put after school as a front and center component to the daytime traditional school, and that in line with that of what you see with science centers, higher education, and what have you. So I want to leave you with a couple things. First, as we all think about STEM, it is something that is very easy to integrate into your out of school time, into your delivery of how you educate students and provide different types of high impact, high engaging opportunities and activities each day. But you have to be very strategic on how you do this. Just doing a STEM day where you build a rocket and launch it once and then put that away and you don't do it ever again, or don't have any type of curriculum around it. These one and done type things, they're good, but they're not great. And if we want to really build out what Missouri After School Network and the programs that you have really help students understand their true potential with STEM, it's starting with a vision. It's developing that vision. And it could be something as simple as we are going to offer as much computer coding around our program, our after school program. It could be we're going to host a two-week camp in the summertime. That's an extension of what our outer school time does in the school year. That's really going to focus on computers or robotics or bio-life plant sciences, whatever that may be. But you have to start with that vision, and then you have to develop that plan. And I would surmise that you have to be detailed, but it has to be achievable and executable, right? So you can't have this grand, audacious vision and not have a plan to back it. The other thing is you have to create sustainability. And I think that's been a cornerstone for Missouri After School Network with what they've been doing over the last 5 years, is trying to figure out creating a sustainable system. And then your stakeholder buy-in. You have to get the K-12 school superintendents and those people to buy in on it, but you also have to get your parents and your community to also support you in that effort. There's been some great examples of after-school programs doing STEM and getting stakeholders to pay for it in their communities. And then the awareness, it has to be promoted. It has to be touted out to the parents, both that are already in your program, to understand why it's so important, but also to parents that aren't in your programs so that they can maybe share what you're doing with others that they know, be it in their family or their friend circle. And then I'll finish up here with constantly delivering key performance indicators. You got to reflect, report, and evolve. So I'll close it up and I'll turn it over to Terry. Thank you so much for allowing me to come in. I really appreciate that. And we're going to hear from Tammy Buckner, who's really going to kind of shed the light on what she's doing in her organization for STEM.
Thank you, Brian. We really appreciate that overview of STEM in Missouri. And it's great to hear it from that business perspective that we think, like many of us think like educators, but it's really important to see it from that workforce perspective as we educate our youth going all the way down to kindergartners in our after school programs to see where the trajectory is going. So we appreciate you being here with us this morning. Erin, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our keynote speaker, Tammy, and let her share with us the great stuff going on in Kansas City.
Sounds great. Thank you. I'm super delighted to introduce Tammy. Mark and I were able to connect with her not very long ago, and since then it's been a whirlwind, and we've just been working together, and we're so delighted to have her as our keynote because she has a very inspiring story that I think is going to speak to a lot of people. Tammy is the founder of a minority woman-owned technology solutions company. She's also co-founded WeCode KC, which is a technology education program that trains and mentors youth and young adults from underserved communities in technology concepts to increase economic prosperity and equalize the technology playing field. As the CEO of WeCode KC, Ms. Buckner is a thought leader and a highly requested technology strategist and innovative systems change speaker. She advocates for entrepreneurship and diversifying technology to close the Black tech talent gap by making changes to the education system, preparing a pipeline of diverse tech professionals, and promoting retention initiatives. She's been recognized as a community builder to watch in KC and is a recent graduate of the Executive MBA program at Rockhurst University. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to Tammy Buckner.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you, Erin, so much. I really appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Tammy Buckner, and I am the CEO and founder of WeCode KC. I would truly like to thank Mark, Erin, and the entire staff at Missouri After School Network for asking me to share my story. And as Erin alluded, we've only known each other for a short amount of time, but it seemed like it's been forever. It has been a whirlwind. I am so excited to be a part of the After School Network and all the things that we're doing with WeCode KC. It's an honor to be here with you. We have some great panels this morning, so I'm honored to have this opportunity to kick off the STEM Educators Symposium as the keynote. So thank you for sharing your morning with me. I'm sure most of you came here to hear about best practices and challenges you face in the education system, implementing STEM concepts, whether it's in your community, your businesses, or just in your daily curriculum at different schools. So I'll take a little bit of your time and talk about my tech journey as a Black woman in technology. I'll share some insights. I'll also talk about why I started WeCode KC, and hopefully I can inspire and motivate you to grasp a deeper impact in your company as well as in your community. And then I'll talk about how other organizations such as WeCode services are transformational in our economy and that we live in today. And lastly, I'll talk about our goals to close the Black tech talent gap. And I believe I have some slides. Let's see if I can share them this time. Yep, there we go. Give me a thumbs up. You can see my slides. They're loading. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. And so I don't have very many slides today because I always fumble when I am showing slides and trying to speak at the same time. So as a young girl growing up in the suburbs of Memphis, Tennessee, I was mostly surrounded by my family. So basically our cousins were our first friends. Most of my cousins were males. So it was nothing to find me playing with their radio controlled cars, you know, Starsky and Hutch cars, their radio controlled airplanes, anything electronics, anything electrical, anything with blinking LEDs, as opposed to playing with Barbie dolls, having tea parties, or sewing machines. I wasn't a girly girl, and that was okay. I was totally okay with that. What I was most intrigued about were these tiny little resistor wires that my uncle used to use to fix electronic devices. Likely someone in the neighborhood brought some type of device, whether it was a TV or a transitional radio, that they wanted him to fix. And I was so intrigued, like watching him do that. It excited me. And I continued to watch and always wondered why, why couldn't I do that? Why couldn't I try that? It was in the very early 80s that my father moved my family from Memphis, Tennessee to Kansas City, Missouri. And right about that time, Disney released the very first computer-generated graphics movie. It featured all of these computers and hackers translating data inside these computers. And I was so intrigued by these things, by these computers. So my parents bought us a computer. And me remembering my uncle taking things apart, I too felt that I needed to take something apart. So I took our computer apart. And trust me, I was not supposed to do that, obviously. I got in trouble, but I did get it back together and it was actually working. But I really wanted to see what was going on the inside. I wanted to see some of the things that I saw in that movie. How many of you remember the name of that movie that came out years and years ago that had all of these computers? Does anybody remember the name of that movie?
I remember one movie, Tron.
Yep, that was it. That was it. The name of the movie was Tron. And it's so funny because my mother named my little brother after the movie Tron. His name is Tron. He would probably kill me if he heard me talking about this. So his name is Tron. He got the name of the movie. I got the computers, which fascinated me and led me down into this fascinating world of technology. So while I was dabbling in this Commodore 64, I was likely coding before the word coding was truly a buzzword. I was getting into the floppy disk and all of the programming that came along with the computers. I didn't see people in my school or even in my community or in my neighborhood doing this, but it fascinated me and I kept going. Now, during my high school and getting into college, I didn't see people that was encouraging me. I never remembered anyone encouraging me or even assisting me with what classes that I needed to take as I was deciding to get into college and learn more about computer science. And so since I didn't have a mentor, I kind of dabbled here and there and kept switching my major by the time I got to college. So I started with computer science, then I switched to electrical engineering, then I switched to business and marketing and back to computer science and finally landed in computer science, which one of my counselors finally said, if you just finish, if you just stop and finish, you might go ahead and graduate. So I gathered and I started with all of these different types of IT skills. So I started teaching myself coding because that was something that was my love. I went directly back into that, continuing to learn these skills in computers. I found myself working at the Kansas City Star and I landed in the electronic media department. Now, that was right when the newspaper was transitioning to a digital format called kansascity.com. I don't know if many of you remember that, but it was the modem that you heard. It was during the time of AOL, and we was dialing into the internet to download our newspaper. So it was right about that time that I started at the Kansas City Star, and we were putting the newspaper online. During that time, this was also when the internet mainly was controlled, or more things that was on the internet was just basically government. But this is also when people start commercializing the internet. Many people came to the Kansas City Star for services and wanting to get their websites online. So we started working on websites for huge companies, and of course, organizations such as the Kansas City Royals, Oak Park Mall, Worlds of Fun. So I was in that pioneering organization or department that had the opportunity to get these websites up. We had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea what we was getting ourselves into. This was so much work. We thought at the Kansas City Star that we would put these websites online and turn them over to those companies. It did not work that way because no one even knew what it meant or even how to update websites. So this continued for many years. Finally, the Kansas City Star said enough is enough. We did not want to get into this area, so we decided to stop. They shut down the department and basically gave everyone the opportunity to go into other areas. Because I had such an entrepreneurial spirit, I wanted to keep these websites. I wanted to maintain these websites. So I decided to go ahead and take a leap of faith and started my own web development company. That was back in 2003 or 4. Yes, I'm definitely telling my age, but I had no idea what I was doing, starting a web development company. As a Black woman in technology in 2003 or 4, starting a tech company, let alone a web development company, was totally unheard of. I didn't have the support. I didn't have the ecosystem that we have today for entrepreneurs. And I definitely didn't have a mentor helping me and guiding me to run not only a business, but a tech company that was predominantly awesome with, it's a male dominated industry. I was literally siloing myself because I had no one else to go to. About 2010, the internet literally took a major turn. It was when Flash and animation and all of the fast moving technology came about, and I had no support and no way of keeping up. This was also the area of the .com boom and bust. This was web was strictly 1.0, and Google was just a baby. I ended up closing my web development business and I went to work at a digital marketing firm. Again, I didn't see people that looked like me. I was one of 2 Black women in this digital marketing firm, and the only Black woman or the only woman in the company that actually knew how to code. I didn't feel that I was strong enough to be a software developer or a software engineer. Back then, it was just a web developer. But I took on the role as a business systems analyst where I documented technical information for the tech team. So I basically told the tech teams what to do. I took on that role and it allowed me to travel. It allowed me to travel to places such as Microsoft and Kellogg's and all of these other tech companies. And what I didn't find was people that looked like me. And it baffled me because technology at that time and still today is the fastest growing industry with the highest pay rate. So I was wondering why there was so few women and so few people of color, because this was a truly lucrative career path that allowed me to live the lifestyle that I like to lead, but it was mostly dominated by white males. I wanted to figure out how I could make a change. I wanted to encourage other people. You really need to get into technology because this is a way to make really good money. A lot of my friends, a lot of my families looked at me like I was crazy because it is a challenge. It was a challenge, it was difficult. And not only that, when you think about technology, you thought about men or teenagers, white men or teenagers slumped over their computers, drinking energy drinks in their garage, in their basement, doing that. So it wasn't an area that most people thought was cute, sexy, or any of that. So a lot of them selected not to go into technology. But I still wanted to figure out a way how I can encourage young people to see how technology truly could change their life. I decided to start working in my community, and with the help of the digital marketing firm that I was working at, I started volunteering at organizations such as Mind Drive and Ivanhoe Community Center, teaching kids what I had learned in technology and encouraging them to go to college and learn more and more about technology. I started talking to friends and close friends of mine, sharing some of the coding programs that I wanted to share with other people. I finally talked to a really good friend of mine, and he had just moved back to Kansas City. He was talking to me about a coding company that he started in another state. And I said, that's it. That's exactly what I want to do. I want to start a coding program in Kansas City that we can teach kids how to code. So this is how WeCode KC was started. After pulling funds out of my personal savings, generating funds from friends, family, receiving donated computers from local tech companies, and talking to a few tech friends to talking them into becoming volunteers, we started our very first pilot program November 2019 with about 50 kids from various parts of the city. Our obvious goal was to make sure that we connected with kids in the urban core so that they can find out about technology that's something that's radical and transformational about learning and then these learning experiences. When we opened our doors to about 50 to 60 kids. So at that time, I felt my dream finally came true. We started with one program, which was Scratch, which is a block-based visual programming language that was aimed toward children. But our goal was to provide technology and other project-based workshops on the first and third Saturday of every month with a focus on providing laptops and internet access to youth from the urban core. And so remember, that was November 2019. And as we know, quickly, the world changed January of 2020. The first case of COVID-19 was confirmed and literally the world shut down. Quickly, this spread across the country, affecting our schools, our volunteers, our students, our families. So by early March of 2020, we were canceling our in-person workshop and most of the country was shutting down. This was a very difficult time, not only for me, because I lost someone very close to me, and then of course the world was truly changing. We had to pivot our program, and I begged my entire team to pivot our program to a virtual platform. When we pivoted, we didn't realize this gave us an opportunity to become an international program. We opened our doors to youth from everywhere from Canada to New York to LA. However, we lost a lot of our urban core kids because at this time, COVID truly exposed the true disparities in our communities and definitely made us aware of the digital divide. A lot of kids that lacked devices and high-speed internet service were not able to attend our program. However, the kids that we did interact with finally was able to engage with kids from totally different time zones. So imagine kids in the urban core talking to kids in Canada, LA, New York. The commonality was they just wanted to learn technology. And so that was a transforming for WeCode as we continue to grow. We kept our doors open. We were able to keep our doors open through COVID. However, COVID also further shrunk the pipeline. At this time, Black and Hispanic students experienced sharper decline in fourth grade math test scores during the pandemic compared to their white and Asian peers, literally wiping out decades of progress. And without an intervention, it's possible it's lagging the test scores will lead to a decreased number of Black students who eventually pursue STEM careers. WeCode is not only a coding program. We teach the essential durable skills, critical thinking, communication, and public speaking skills, and also how to work as a team. Typically, these are the typical skills that you see in any tech company. So we want to ensure our students that it's not just about coding, it's all about being prepared for the workforce. By developing innovative programming focused on cultivating 21st century skills through technology-based, project-based learning, we address many of the disparities in the digital divide. We utilize education as a vehicle for technology and activism. WeCode is driving its desire to end the inequitable systems while creating opportunities and access for underserved communities. Our goal is to create the most innovative after-school workforce development program where youth are learning market value assets to go directly into the workforce. We've partnered with local tech companies, community colleges, and youth organizations to assist with everything from scholarships to internships. We know that in our communities, a lot of our students don't have the opportunity, don't have the finances, or the capability of going to college. We want to make sure that we provide them with the skills that they can go directly into the workforce and make sure that they turn around the disparities that we see right now in our community. We believe that this is a ministry with a dire focus on the diversity of technology. We want to make sure that our future is defined by our technology sector that serves everyone equitably, but specifically in those underrepresented youth. We want to make sure residents out of these communities that have been marginalized and traditionally left behind get engaged with the technology. We've grown this organization from our pilot of 60 kids to serving over 2,000 youth with over 35 volunteers that have over 2,000 direct training hours. We have 5 full-time members, a host of volunteers, contractors, and a growing alumni network. We nurture our students in 3 different areas. We nurture them into college, if they so desire, into the workforce, or into tech entrepreneurship. We have a request to implement our program into many schools for the 23 school year. So as I wrap up, I want to take a look at the Black representation in technology and why we do what we do and how we plan to close the Black tech talent. Black representation in technology jobs isn't about just bridging the wage gaps. And as we heard Brian talk about how quickly technology is growing, we have to also ensure that we make sure that Black representation matters in these spaces. The education program focuses on STEM in the K-12 schools have been a long potential feeder into technology workforce. While much of the nonprofit sector work has increased diversity in STEM, there could be more targeted efforts from businesses specifically designed to encourage Black student participation. Businesses, nonprofit organizations, and public sector agency must take action to increase Black representation in tech jobs. Specifically, we need to re-examine our approach in different areas through career journeys for Black tech talent by improving STEM in education at the K-12 level, strengthening our HBCU partnerships, expanding opportunities for alternative skilled talent, and replacing mentorship with sponsorship. Mentorship with sponsorship. And not only that, empowering Black leaders to thrive in these spaces. Doing so will support our Black technology workforce for generations to come. Now, we saw again how fast technology is growing. Black people make up 12% of the US workforce, but only 8% of employees in tech jobs. The percentage is even smaller further up the corporate ladder. Just 3% of technology executives in the C-suite are Black, according to analysis. So when I ask our students, what are the top tech CEOs? They name 3: Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg. And we all know the same commonality is white males. But we want to show our students that there is an opportunity that they too can be successful Black tech CEOs. We want to encourage them and show them that the representation matter. Across all industry, technology jobs, those that are in data science, engineering, cybersecurity, software development, are expected to grow 14% by 2032. We're in 2023. So less than 10 years, this technology industry is growing by 14%, but the Black tech talent in those roles only expected to grow 8% over the same period. So in conclusion, I encourage us to make a commitment in 3 different ways. First, if you are in a company, I'm sorry, I just skipped all over my slides. If you are in a company and you are a hiring manager inside of your company, be intentional about being a mentor. Be intentional about sponsoring, support, or championing and guiding younger people that may not be in your network. Be intentional about retaining diverse tech talent. It's one thing to introduce and hire Brown and Blacks in your company, but it's another to engage them. I love being invited to a party, but I also want to be engaged. So making sure that if you are a hiring manager, be intentional about retention initiative, making sure that your culture, that everyone fit into your culture. Secondly, I encourage you, your time is valuable. And within your community, I encourage you to be intentional about volunteering in these after-school programs. We need volunteers. It's great to be able to hire when we have the funds, but it's more importantly to volunteer using your skills, your talents as a gift to mentor and support the youth in these organizations. And finally, and definitely not least, only 20% of Fortune 100 companies have a K-12 STEM partnership focused on students in underserved communities. Businesses need to meet students where they are, in underwriting technology courses or offering information sessions in predominantly Black communities. So if you are in a space of your company, in your business, I encourage you, I employ you to try your best to be a part of organizations such as WeCode so that we can continue to bring about these programs for our students in the after school space. I believe now is the right time to do as much as we possibly can. I have the confidence that everyone on this call today is in a position that we can raise our voices so that we can ensure after-school programs get the funding that we need, that we can get the time that we need, that we can not only secure our seat at the table, but when you see other people, other young people in this space, bring them along with you. Encourage them to get involved with technology and be a part of more after-school programs. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, I didn't go through all of my slides.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much. And thank you for having the courage to be you and continue to push yourself and to also uplift others and help them to be more successful even than you have been. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. I am going to drop your website for WeCode KC into the chat. If anyone wanted to get a hold of you, would that be the best place to get?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us today.